to be able to put this into our fleet to be able to properly respond to hazardous materials incidents throughout the county. Our Department of Consumer Affairs has been very busy working with the Attorney General's office on a statewide ban on synthetic marijuana. Now, you know, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I remember a time when you went to the corner candy store or the supermarket, you either bought Bazooka bubble gum or Raisinets. Now they're selling things like K2, Spice, Kush, Down to Earth, and Comatose candy. Synthetic marijuana in places that kids can purchase these items. Thankfully, the state had an epiphany, created a statewide ban on this, and our Consumer Affairs Department has been working with the AG's office to educate retailers about the necessary removal of these items from their shelves so kids don't avail themselves of it. And they're making them aware of the law, because then there will be enforcement to make sure that when kids go in, they're looking for Raisinets instead of something like that. On 3/18 of this month, we're going to have a household hazardous waste collection facility program at the Middlesex County College. It's one of our probably most famous and well-used programs in the county. It's from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 at the county college. On the 24th, we're going to have a paper shredding event in Old Bridge Municipal Building. If you have any records, personal records or documents that you want to make sure are disposed of properly, they're shredded in a public setting there. They go right through the machine right in front of you. That runs from 9 to 12 in Old Bridge. In our traffic safety endeavors, we just received all of the entries for our, I guess it's our 12th annual 3D public service announcement video contest with our high schools. Pleased to tell the board that we received 28 entries this year from high schools on not only the ills of drinking and driving, but also distracted driving, which I think everyone knows is really a very, very important issue. People are texting and on the phone and creating accidents, putting people at risk. So we have two categories. There's a video category, 30-second public service announcement video, and a 30-second public service announcement radio spot. The entries are very, very good this year. We'll be having judging very shortly with a group of 12 independent judges, and we'll be awarding winners in those categories in another month or so. And last but not least, through our comprehensive traffic safety program, we just received approval from a statewide restaurant association to do the unveiling of a new initiative, which is going to be focusing on a new law in New Jersey. And those of you who may not be aware of it, I'll inform you about it today. It's called the Move Over Law. You may see more material coming out about this in the future, but if you're driving down a highway and you see an emergency vehicle on the side of the road, police, fire, ambulance, or tow truck, the new law says that you have to move over a lane, or if you're unable to do that, you have to reduce your speed to at least the speed limit and below. It is a safety endeavor that came as a result of a state trooper who was killed a number of months ago on one of our highways, catering to a car that had broken down and was unfortunately struck by a vehicle who came too close in the right lane. So there's a very important need for this. It is a law now, and we're going to be doing some great education in a cooperative venture with the Restaurant Association statewide, not only in our county but beyond our borders, to make people and drivers aware of this new law. And that's it, Director. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Freeholder. Deputy Director Ron Rios.
Thank you, Director. The Office of Information and Technology is implementing a new state-of-the-art email security system to guard against spam, viruses, and other related threats or malicious attacks to our data network. By using a computer application using cloud computing, or for us lay people, the application resides off our premises, it will result in a reduction in expenses, since it is cheaper to maintain this application in this manner. There's no installation cost to the county. I'd also like to report that the Office of Human Resources is currently updating our county administration building evacuation plan in the event there's any kind of evacuation necessary, and all our people that would be involved in that process. The Board of Elections is preparing for the annual school board elections in April, on April 17th. There are 5 Middlesex County municipalities that chose to stay on the April date, and the rest of them all chose to go in November in a cost-saving measure. Tonight, I am pleased to announce that the Freeholder Board is adding to the county's already strong and creative inventory of shared services programs by implementing and expanding Middlesex County community notification system. This incredibly robust communications tool can send thousands of notifications within seconds via phone, text, and email messages. It has proven to be an essential and most effective tool during emergencies, not only for us as a county, but for municipalities as well. During Hurricane Irene, the county, on behalf of Dunellen, Helmetta, Milltown, Perth Amboy, Plainsboro, and South Amboy, sent urgent messages to residents regarding storm and flood warnings, evacuation orders, and boil water advisories. The system allowed us to get out critical information quickly and seamlessly. The success of the system during the hurricane was the impetus behind our latest shared service offering, to expand use of this highly capable system for non-emergency events as well. Middlesex County's community notification system is the latest and an incredibly efficient way for us and for our municipal partners to communicate important information to our residents and all those who work within our borders. Tonight you will hear a presentation on just how many ways this system can assist our towns and, more importantly, our residents. Will a parade in town require road closures, a fire hydrant being flushed in a certain area of town? Has a municipal schedule changed, or is emergency road work being conducted? Program participants will be able to send timely, accurate information via phone, text, or email messages to as large or small a group as necessary. Old Bridge has become the first town to embrace this expanded use, and right now we are working with Monroe Township and others to join us as well. Perhaps the most critical step in making this the most effective notification system it can be is to get residents, business owners, and those who work in Middlesex County to register. As the number of registrants grows, the effectiveness of the system increases. So tonight's presentation is the first step in a campaign to get the word out about this new system. We have a link to the self-registration page on our county website, www.co.middlesex.nj.us. Old Bridge Township will also place a link on its website. In short, Middlesex County's community notification system uses the latest technology to deliver fast, accurate notifications in any number of emergency and non-emergency situations. By joining our system, municipalities will save substantial taxpayer dollars, and the county will be able to use this communications technology to its full capacity. At this time, I would like to introduce Stacy Bersani, who will give us a brief overview of the system.
Freeholders. As Freeholder Deputy Director Rios indicated, Middlesex County is offering a new shared service to our municipalities, namely Middlesex County's Community Notification System. It will serve all municipalities who decide to participate. Because the county has already purchased and implemented the system, we can offer it to our municipalities as a shared service opportunity, while at the same time take advantage of the system's substantial capabilities. Key benefits for all users, be it the county or any of the municipal partners, include state-of-the-art mapping capability and the ability to process thousands of contacts per minute for immediate notification. Those notifications can be targeted to a specific geographic area because the system uses GIS, or Geographic Information System technology. It is fully supported and backed up to ensure communications readiness at all times and provides a log of all notifications made. One of the key selling points to our communities is that once they sign an agreement to join our system, they have control over their own notifications. They can send notifications to the entire town or just targeted areas, as mentioned before. The system is accessible through the internet from any location, and although the initial rollout is for emergency notifications only, the capacity and capability of this robust system will allow the county and each municipal participant to use the system for non-emergency notifications in due time. That is why the county's community notification system takes on much more significance and can offer an effective and efficient communications tool when news needs to be disseminated to a large number of people in a short period of time. There are any number of emergency situations during which the system can be used, such as severe weather alerts, evacuation orders, terror threats, the others listed on that screen, and many more that we couldn't capture in one slide. As the freeholder mentioned, the system was used quite effectively during Hurricane Irene. The county continues to use the system to manage emergency notifications for those 6 municipalities. It also will assist in any other Middlesex County town that requests help during emergency situations. But as rollout continues over the next 12 months, there are just as many non-emergency uses for the system. As the freeholder mentioned, municipalities can broadcast through phone calls, text messages, emails, any or all public, service, or community-wide announcements. They can alert residents and people who work in town of street closings, changes to municipal schedules, or for any number of possible uses. Also, as mentioned, Old Bridge Township is the first municipality to embrace the community notification system's expanded uses. It is joining us in our efforts to encourage residents and those who work in Middlesex County to register for the system. Monroe Township and other municipalities also have expressed keen interest in using the community notification system for emergency and expanded uses. The towns are recognizing the benefits of this incredibly robust system, and we fully anticipate that participation will expand quickly. There's a very critical next step. As Freeholder Rios said, our next task is to get people to register for notifications. Tonight's presentation is the first step in our campaign to encourage people to sign up. We have placed a link to the self-registration form on our website at www.co.middlesex.nj.us. We also will be sending out press releases explaining the program. The self-registration portal, as I said, is available right now on the Middlesex County website. The address you'll see there at the bottom of the screen. And you can register multiple phone numbers and email addresses. Once at the self-registration portal, you will have to agree to the terms and conditions for use. You will input personal information and then input contact information, including home and work phone numbers, cell phone numbers to receive calls and text messages, and email addresses. You also have the ability to sign up for either emergency or non-emergency notifications, or both. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Stacy. That concludes my report,
Thank you,
Director.
Deputy Director.
And
Freeholder Charlie Tamara.
Thank you, sir. In our County Economic Development Study, on March 9th, the Middlesex County Employer Legislation Committee unveiled the Economic Development Study. At the Renaissance Hotel, Freeholder Director and I stated their commitment to the economic development initiatives for the county. I introduced the new development head for the business development and education, Kathleen Shaw, who will be spearheading this initiative. Delta Group report findings were presented by Kathleen Shaw. Kathleen provided an overview for the economic development study and goals for implementation. The initiative will continue to be strengthened by our public-private partnerships that began this process, directed by boosting our economy and bringing businesses and jobs to our community. Our Cultural Heritage Commission on Saturday, March 17th, that's this Saturday, started at noon, an afternoon of history and archaeological at the East New Jersey Old Town Village, River Road in Piscataway. Park your car at the village, take a shuttle to the Cornelius Lowe House to see the new exposition. History of the film from 1890 to 1960 in New Jersey. A fascinating look at the birth of movie pictures. And let's all remember that Thomas Edison invented the camera. You will be returned by shuttle to the village in time for the afternoon for presentations. 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., the village, you will hear the best historians and archaeologists in New Jersey talking about the recent discoveries and findings. Among the topics will be American African community of Timbuktu in New Jersey. They'll also be speaking about two very old cemeteries, the Perth Amboys, in Perth Amboy, the St. Peter's Church, and the 17th century Piscataway Town Commons right in Addison. Registration is required. Please call the commission at 745-4489, and the village is ADA accessible. In our Workforce Development Department, this past Wednesday, there was a job fair at Middlesex County College. At Craby Hall on Woodbridge Avenue in Edison, over 33 employers participated, and we had 350 people who attended to seek employment. The co-sponsors were the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development, Middlesex County Office of Workforce Development, and Middlesex County College. And our extension services, this Monday, March 19th, Congressman Rush Holt and State Senators at 7 a.m. will tour the Cooperative Extension Office and Earth Center, including our bioenergy research plots and other research and demonstration trails conducted at the Earth Center at Davidson Mills Pond Park in South Brunswick. Key local and state architectural leaders will be at hand for question and answers for Rush Holt regarding the environment issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Freeholder. Freeholder Blanquita Valente.
Thank you, Freeholder Director.
Agriculture.
From the Department of Community Services, our Office of Human Services, the Division of Addictions and Mental Health Planning is co-sponsoring a conference for male students with Middlesex County College and the Governor's Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse on March 23rd. Over 80 young men already have signed up, and they're between the ages of 13 and 17, and attend schools in Piscataway, Carteret, New Brunswick, Perth Amboy, and the County Votex. They will be there. This conference is entitled Boys to Men, How Decisions Made Today, Tomorrow. It includes numerous workshops and will be held on the college campus in Edison. The Human Service Advisory Council has established an ad hoc legislative committee to review pending federal, state, and local legislation and budget issues. This committee plans to reach out to other county advisory groups to collaborate and advocate on related human service issues impacting Middlesex County residents. From the Office of Aging and Disabled Services, the Senior Meal Program, now operating out of the Piscataway Senior Center, will be temporarily relocated to the South Plainfield Senior Center while Piscataway's kitchen undergoes renovation. There will be no disruption in the delivery of meals to any homebound seniors, and congregant meals will still be available to all county seniors over the age of 60 at the South Plainfield location. During May, the office will partner with the state to conduct 5 days of training for newly recruited volunteers for Medicare counseling certification. There is still room in the training, and interested persons can call the office at 732-745-3295 for additional information. The office will be holding their annual 90 birthday bashes this year at the Edison Center on April 26th, the Old Bridge Senior Center on May 2nd, and the South Brunswick Senior Center on May 14th. County residents over the age of 90 are invited to attend with a guest. For more information, please call the County Office of Aging and Disabled Services at 732-745-3295. When we started this, we only had one, but we have so many people in this category that now we have 3 different birthday bashes. From the Office of Transportation, over this past year, MCAT has worked closely with the Township of South Brunswick and the Aging in Place Partnership to promote more passenger transportation services in South Brunswick Township. Their most recent efforts have resulted in greater availability of transit for South Brunswick residents with no direct access to an automobile, such as older persons, the disabled, and teenagers. Aging in Place developed a user-friendly guide on how to use the M1 bus route, and copies of this guide have been provided to all the freeholders. MCAT provided South Brunswick with 3 county vehicles that were slated for auction to use while they await their new vehicles. The county provided $13,000 of casino revenue funds to South Brunswick to help support intra-municipal medical services. The county also restructured the M1 New Brunswick to Jamesburg bus route to enable more access along Route 130 in South Brunswick. Finally, from the Office of the County Clerk, Passport Day USA was held this past Saturday, March 10th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. 41 applications were processed that day. It was their busiest passport day ever, and it really helped to accommodate working family members. And that's the end of my report, Freeholder
Thank you.
Director.
Thank you, Freeholder. Mr. Kelso, any resolutions to be added?
There are none.
Resolutions to be amended?
We have one resolution to be amended. That's Resolution 120452, the Human Resource Report. Before the freeholders, you'll find sheet 11. Essentially, these changes involve the deletion of a new hire, Anthony Christopher Smith, who has declined a position. And secondly, an add-on with regard to a new hire, Patricia Katura, which is essentially a change from a seasonal to a full-time position.
I need a motion to amend Resolution 12-0452, which is the Human Resources Report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Director Rios, seconded by Freeholder Valente. Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Volante,
Yes.
Freeholder Polos,
Yes.
Freeholder Rios,
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro,
Yes.
Freeholder Valente,
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes. Resolutions to be held?
Yes, Freeholder Director, we have four resolutions to be held. Resolutions 12-0455, 456, 457, and 458, which will be held for a future meeting. No vote is necessary on that.
Resolutions to be voided?
We have one resolution to be voided, Resolution 12-0537. Once again, no vote is necessary to list it as voided.
Thank you, Mr. Kelso. At this point in time, I'd like to open up to the public a public discussion on any resolutions that appear on the agenda. Any public comment on resolutions on the agenda? And let me just say this, to anybody here to comment on the soil safe application and amendment to our solid waste management plan, this is your opportunity right now. Yes, Mayor? Mayor Dan
Freeholder
Ryan.
Director, Honorable Freeholders, how are you? My name is Dan Ryman. I'm the mayor of the borough of Carteret, and I'm here this evening with quite a few residents of our community. And as you can see from these photos in front of you, these photos were taken of the Cytec site, the old former American Cyanamid property located in our industrial district. Approximately 125 acres of property that operated as an industrial sludge pond from the 1930s until the 1970s. This site was abandoned in the 1970s, but not until after Cytec disposed of over 2 million tons of alum sludge and cyanide. This is the current condition of these 125 acres. I've had the opportunity to serve as mayor for the past 10 years. During that time, we've had multiple redevelopers designated for this site. They've all walked away. In fact, in 1994, Governor Whitman came to Carteret to sign what was called then the Reclamation District Act, in hope of taking sites like this and putting it back to work for the communities, for the environment, and for the economy. And nearly 20 years later, this is the current condition of the site. We've been in negotiations with SoilSafe to redevelop, to encapsulate this site for the past few years. We've had multiple meetings with the DEP and other interested parties. You know, there are those that may be here tonight or that have been in opposition to this project that have said, take another route. Don't operate a Class B recycling facility. In fact, some have said there's an NFA on site, so leave it as it is. And again, look at these photos or visit the site. 2 million tons of alum sludge, of cyanide on site. 25 million gallons of water a year leaching into the Rahway River, contaminated with cyanide and many other chemicals that were simply left on this site by Cytec Industries. The resolution in front of you tonight, 12-0545, would allow SoilSafe over the next few years to operate a Class B recycling facility in town. They wouldn't be bringing in any hazardous material. They would be bringing in aggregate and stone and other ID 27 product. What's in front of the board tonight doesn't have anything to do with the NFA. That'll be handled by the DEP. Ultimately, that's their jurisdiction. What's in front of the board is simply a resolution to amend the county solid waste management plan to allow for the operation of this facility. Out of the 125 acres on site, 25 acres would be ultimately used for redevelopment. 55 acres of wetlands would be preserved forever. Another 45 acres of uplands would be preserved forever. The berms on the site would be reconstructed to ensure that some storm or high tide or river event does not destroy these berms and allow 2 million tons of sludge to make their way into the Rahway River. So I ask that the board look at this favorably and to vote responsibly to ensure not only that we cap this site, to ensure that we protect the environment, put people back to work, and finally put this property to use in the borough of Carteret. Thank you.
Before I forget, remember there's a 5-minute rule. I forgot to announce that before.
Since he took most of my thunder, I'll probably be less than 5. Thank you, sir. My name is, thank you for permitting me to speak at this point. My name is Vincent Bellino. I'm a councilman in Carteret, and I represent the interest of the constituents of Carteret. As you've already heard from the mayor, very eloquently describing the area that we want to get remediated. Part of the remediation process will protect the constituents of Carteret in the future. As a child, I used to play down there prior to I-Port. There's a little waterfront. You could jump off the bridge and go into the water, not knowing what would happen. Over the past years, I'm a direct recipient of what chemicals can do to a body. All right. Thank God, I'm okay. But we want to protect the interests of the people in the future, especially our children and our grandchildren. By remediating this area, capping it off, protecting the interest of the people at this particular point in time is a requirement. So when I'm sick, when you're sick, you go to a doctor. I'm coming here today. You're the doctor for my community. We need to get this remediated. We need to get it cleaned up, and we get it capped with the soil on it. We could use it. Even if it's only 1 acre, it's progress. It's going forward. It's clean. Thank you for your time.
Before you sit down, there's other council members here. Could you introduce them for me in the audience?
Yes. We have Sue Naples sitting on the end. We have Jorge Diaz. He's here someplace. He's in the back. Skippy Sitars is right here. And we have, that's it, right? We got them all? That's it.
Thank you.
That's it. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, freeholders. My name is Father Deacon James Cairns. I am currently assigned to St. Demetrius Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral in Carteret. And I speak to you tonight not only as a member of the clergy of Carteret, but more importantly as an engineer. I have spent the last 17 years of my life working in construction management, and civil and structural engineering. And on behalf of myself and my parishioners, I urge you to allow the Soil Safe project to go forward. The remediation of brownfields in the state of New Jersey and of Superfund sites has been a critical issue for many of us, especially here in Middlesex County. I remember not many years ago, but about a decade ago, I worked on the Hamilton Boulevard project going through South Plainfield. And as you know, there are many Superfund sites through that town. So I would like to see Carteret cleaned up the same way that you cleaned up, or the DEP cleaned up South Plainfield. I'd like to be able to see a site where my children could go down and walk amongst the river and see the natural beauty that is the wetlands. And I urge you to allow Soil Safe to bring in and start their recycling plant and cap this disaster that is sitting there and protect not only the existing location, but protect the Rahway River and our oceans where it leads to. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The director, members of the board, I'm Councilman Sitars from Borough Carteret. I'd like to shed a little light on this. I've been employed by GATX Kinder Morgan for 50-some years, and we had some tanks adjacent to the area that's in question right now. And at times when cyanamide, I knew it as, would pump the liquid in, it would be fine. But once they closed up shop and they moved out, nobody was pumping liquid, and it dried out. And when it dried out, it became a dust storm. When we'd be working on a tank out there, take us 3 or 4 months to get a tank back in shape. We'd be working there, and sometimes you'd have to shut the job down because you couldn't breathe with that dust blowing around, and everybody had to go take cover and that. But I think what the mayor is doing right now, I think it's the right thing. I think they should have done something with this a long time ago.
Thank you.
The Honorable Director, my name is Professor Olu Onofowora. I'm a professor of economics. I come here tonight to appeal to you all to kindly support the initiative of this soil safe. It is very critical to our people in Kararet, as a matter of fact in the whole state, to have this approval. The integrity of the environment is very important. It depends on your approval of this initiative. We are very concerned about the whole issue. That is why I'm here tonight to please appeal to all of you to kindly approve this laudable initiative. Thank you very much.
Anybody else in the public? And remember, not just soil safe, it's any resolution that's on the agenda. Anybody else in the public? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Voris. I'm representing the New Jersey Conservation Foundation this evening. How many people here from Carteret? Very good. I grew up in Rahway. 21 years ago, I founded the Rahway River Association. I'm speaking along with several other environmental groups in opposition to this project, and I'd like everyone to hear why. And I think it's great that you guys are here because I don't know if you've heard both sides of the story. Since we didn't have the opportunity to meet with any of you the night of the public hearing last week, I'm glad that everyone or most people are here tonight. Basically, we're very concerned about the disparity between the representations that Soil Safe has made to the county and the representations they've made to New Jersey DEP. Soil Safe, in their application, makes no mention of contaminants other than petroleum-contaminated soils. So, yeah, they do say in their DEP documents that they have requested that their final product that they're going to put down on the ground contain a carcinogen at 150 times residential standards. Their final product, which means the material that's going to be coming in is going to be a lot more than that, and that they would like to base their permit on their operation in South Jersey. If that is the case, then the trucks coming through Carteret are going to be carrying arsenic, beryllium, cadmium, lead, nickel, zinc, PCBs, antimony, barium, copper, thallium, and other all above regulatory standards to be processed at that site. I don't know if you know that. Soil Safe stated that the county had, Soil Safe stated to the county that no fill volume has been determined for the site yet. But over a year and a half ago, they told New Jersey DEP that if they couldn't bring in a minimum of 2 million tons of fill, the project would probably not be viable, that the volume is a critical commercial issue, that anticipated volumes are critical, and that the proposed development plan will require importation of contaminated materials to the site above what is needed for grading, and that the existing perimeter berm structure has not been designed to withstand the weight of the proposed fill. So while they're saying that no volume has decided, they told DEP a year and a half ago that if it wasn't at least 2 million tons, then the project wasn't going to work. Based on the contour maps of their preliminary grading plan to New Jersey DEP, we've calculated that to achieve the final project that they've provided drawings for would take 4.5 million tons of contaminated soil. I would remind the freeholders of another Class B facility that you've authorized. The JNC Materials operation in Carteret was only permitted by DEP to maintain about 10,000 tons of material on site. Today, for the past 3 years, there's been a pile of 100,000 tons of construction debris sitting on that site for the past 3 years, despite New Jersey DEP orders to desist. and despite Carteret's attempts to stop that project. We're concerned about this Class B designation because of SoilSafe's previous actions in the state. The last time they were applying for a permit like this in South Jersey, they were being kicked off their first New Jersey project under threats of $20,000 in fines, and they settled $120,000 in violations, including accepting unpermitted contaminants, operating without a permit, and failure to maintain data on their emissions. Just before they moved off that site to their next site, a 500-foot-long section of their landfill remediation collapsed into the adjacent wetland. At their second site, SoilSafe told New Jersey DEP and the County Solid Waste Committee that they would use about 1 million tons to remediate a contaminated site, very similar to what they're saying now. 9 years later, they've placed over 4.5 million tons of petroleum-contaminated soil on that site. They also have a long list of violations down there, including stopping reporting in the 9th month of their operations and continuing to accept almost 50% more than their permit allowed them to for that year. SoilSafe has stated before the Solid Waste Advisory Committee that the no further action letter was based on 10 samples taken over the 125 acres in 1991. That's not true. The NFA is based on 7 years of water quality monitoring.
Thank you, sir.
So we're concerned for these reasons, and we'll continue. We would like to reach out to you so that you know what is actually being proposed for the site. Very different than what you've been told.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public?
Good evening. My name is Brandy Chapman. I'm a conservation intern for Edison Wetlands Association. I'd like to comment on the proposed soil recycling plan for the SciTech site in Carteret, New Jersey. The current condition of the site is actually better than what would result if SoilSafe were allowed to follow through with this project. Currently, the primary component of the slurry placed on the site is gypsum, which is the most common sulfite material. We know what minor contamination exists at the site, but we do not know what potentially dangerous materials could be in the minimum 2 million tons of highly contaminated soil that SoilSafe has asked to be allowed to import through Carteret and onto the site. I would like to reiterate the fact that, logically speaking, adding a variety of new contaminants to any site, no matter how contaminated it is, does not make it cleaner. In this case, petroleum-contaminated soils with additional metals contamination does not remove any contaminants, it only adds them, along with thousands of gallons worth of petroleum contamination that is not already present directly along Rahway River. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Russell Baker, and I'm a current member of the Edison Wetlands Association. I'm here tonight to voice my concerns regarding the application of the SoilSafe project that is set to take place in the borough of Carteret. Upon learning of the project's initial plan, I found it extremely troubling that a company would ever consider bringing in large amounts of toxic material as a viable option for a remediation effort. I've consistently wondered to myself, where is the rationale in that line of thinking? How could one ever justify building a landfill for materials that another state requires to be removed from it and call it an environmental remediation? This is what I fear SoilSafe is attempting to do. They're planning to bring material that has already been deemed too toxic to remain in the ground by the state of New York, as well as many other states, and are requesting that it be brought straight into New Jersey. While I'm aware that SoilSafe identifies itself as a recycling company, the recycling in New Jersey so far seems to consist of bringing in contaminated soils from different states and putting it down next to the recycling plant. I don't understand how this constitutes recycling. If a recycler took glass bottles, ground them up, and then placed them in a landfill, would that be considered recycling? Anyone familiar with how some industries have co-opted words like organic and environmental services should be able to see that this is another instance of an unpleasant reality hiding beyond a pleasant label. I would implore the Board of Freeholders to use their common sense and realize that this facility is not a recycling operation. There are many other ways this problem can be fixed and should be fixed, and I feel it's imperative that we start exploring them. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public?
Motion to close.
Second.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't see them.
Evening, my name is Bill Roberts. I'm with SoilSafe. Glad that we have an opportunity to address some of the things that have been said about us tonight. I'd like to tell you that we were invited up here by the new landowners. They have an extreme geotechnical problem at that site, and they know that we have a system and a process that makes material from recycled materials that will address it. There's been a lot of things I think that we've already presented in the record, and hopefully you've seen and heard many of the things that were talked about tonight, but I would like to just talk about some of the latest accusations, or whatever you want to call it. We have no interest in bringing anything at 150 times any kind of a residential standard. We've never asked for that, and we have no intention to do so. There's an NFA on the site. It's a conditional NFA. It allows us to bring in materials for fill at non-residential standard. It also allows us to ask for an increase if there is anything, and we are going to ask for a PAH increase with DEP. The reason for that is there's existing PAH contamination throughout the site at 300 times that standard. We are looking at something around 15 to be able to accomplish this job. The volume of has been spoken about many times. We don't know what the volume is going to be. We have to cover the site. We're looking at something approximately 7 feet thick to be able to give it the structure that we're going to need to cap this site and to allow for any kind of a development on that 25 acres. We also have to control the water. The arsenic issue that was brought up before is off the table. The city asked us if we would be willing to take some material with arsenic in it. We talked to DEP and our engineers and the LSRP. They said no. That is off the table. We've never been kicked off of any site anywhere. I don't know where that's come from. $120,000 in violations. Again, have no idea where that came from. We got into a lawsuit with DEP over an issue on reporting. Because one permit said we had to report this way, another permit said we had to report that way. Commissioner Jackson stepped in and said, settle this up, and we did. Nothing has ever collapsed into any wetlands. The long list of violations, we've had 7 violations in the last 9 years. 6 of them are administrative, that's bookkeeping, not reporting on time, self-reporting things that we may have done wrong and found out that we hadn't. So all of those things, I think in that long period of time with 8 major permits on a site, that's a very good record, and we haven't had any for 4.5 years. Taking 50% more than allowed in 1 year, I can go on and on. I think I've addressed things that need to be said. It's just this. Without the Class B, we can't do anything on this site. This is the 4th of 16 permits that we need to get. We're not trying to skirt anything. We've opened up our discussions with Carteret and DEP, and we've had a very good response from the professional response from both the county and Carteret. We look forward to being good neighbors here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Mark Smith. I'm the president of SoilSafe. And look, I'm an engineer, and I've been working in the environmental field for 25 years, my entire career. I came to SoilSafe in late 2005, but before that, I spent 18 years cleaning up contaminated sites all across the country. I've worked on 20 different Superfund sites myself. I was the guy out in the moon suit doing all the work, and I'd love your hazmat truck, sir. That's a good-looking piece of equipment. Good luck with that. I've personally managed a number of multi-million-dollar, multi-year contracts for the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, for the Bureau of Reclamation, And I was also involved heavily in 12 years working for EPA's Region 2 and 4 doing emergency response cleanup under ERCS and ERS contracts. My point is, I can generally recognize when a site needs some environmental attention. This site, this former SciTech site in Carteret, needs some attention. Is it the worst site I've ever seen? Certainly not. Certainly not. But it definitely needs some attention. So the conclusions based on what we found, what prior studies have found, what all these pictures show you, they're indisputable. The facts are indisputable. The site needs some attention. So the question is, from property owners' perspective, they said, all right, how do we get this done? The property owners identified many of the salient geotechnical and the structural issues, as well as the financial challenges associated with cleaning up this site. That's when they reached out to SoilSafe. And they recognized the type of work we do, the type of recycling we do. They recognized what we've done on almost 20 million tons of soil in our history. They recognize the product. And by the way, when we talk about is recycling glass and throwing it in landfill recycling, what we do is recycling. It's recognized by the NAHB, and here's the certificate. It is a green approved product for recycling. That's what we do. So, look, we're still very much in the throes of the remedial investigation and design of this project. That is all being done contemporaneous with these proceedings, with all of the permitting and planning that is also going to be done with the DEP. There's still an enormous amount of work to do. However, it's our collective hope, freeholders, that you approve this plan inclusion application so we can complete that remedial investigation design, move forward with the state permitting process, and ultimately address the site in concert with the resource recovery goals and application of recycling solutions to these particular environmental challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name's Debbie Manns, and I'm the Executive Director and Baykeeper for New York, New Jersey Baykeeper. We're an environmental organization that's been working to protect, preserve, and restore the Hudson Raritan Estuary for over 20 years. We've already spoken on the record twice about the numerous deficiencies in the SoilSafe application, and we've submitted those documents to the freeholders as well. If this were truly a Class B recycling facility, then the material coming on site would be source separated per the regulations. It's unclear the amount of waste being generated, its ultimate disposal. Stormwater is not addressed in the application that's available to the public. There's been flaws in the public notice of the meetings, and there's no identification of a market for the material outside of just dumping it onto the site itself, which is also another requirement for a Class B recycling facility. This is not a Class B recycling facility. And this is also not a cleanup plan. This proposal will not fully address groundwater contamination to the Rahway River because it actually does not address groundwater exchange below what the proposed cap would be and the river. If you were doing that, you would install a slurry wall, and you would prevent groundwater exchange between the river and the groundwater on the site. And you'd also have additional groundwater monitoring. That's not being proposed in any of the documents that's been before the DEP. That's not the subject of this application, but it's been brought up by some of the other presenters here, so I wanted to address it. DEP documents that SoilSafe has submitted show that they need to import at least 2 million tons of contaminated material with heights 30 to 40 feet to make this a viable project. That's what I know. That's what's on the record with DEP. This has become more than an environmental issue. This has been becoming an issue about good government. The application was not available for review without an OPRA request. None of the freeholders were at the public hearing last week. We had lots of testimony. My other colleagues who could not be here tonight also provided testimony. We have sent to the freeholders material that lists all our concerns. We sent this a couple weeks ago. I hope you had the opportunity to review it. We also included documentation from the New Jersey DEP that documents all the violations, so you could read yourself about those violations. So it's unclear whether or when deliberation on this decision has occurred. This process has not been transparent, It has not been open, and it certainly hasn't been about protecting the environment.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Balawarchik. I'm a former council member from Carteret. You know, it's strange. I remember back in the 90s when I was on the council, we couldn't get anybody to look at this site. We couldn't get anybody to clean it up. Now there's someone that's come in with a plan. I reviewed the plan. I think it's an excellent plan. It is what she just referred to as Class B recyclables. It is. Everything will be separated. Maybe she needs to go back and look at the plan and understand what's going on there. I think for me it's interesting right now because I moved away for 5 years, but I kept coming back to Carteret to see what was going on. Our daughter was in the military, we were in California. We looked at one another one day and said, let's go back. We want to go back home. Carteret is unbelievably changed since I left in 2002 and came back 2 years ago. It's a beautiful town. The mayor and council in Carteret have done a tremendous job cleaning up other sites. You have beautiful apartment complexes that were, well, actually built on what my husband as a kid growing up would have said, I went ice skating on the acid pits. That's where you had kids in the 1950s ice skating. But it's all remediated, it's all clean. There are beautiful buildings there now. People and families live there. What I don't understand about this right now, the opposition is something, to me, doesn't smell good here. I don't know what's going on other than maybe there's 2 or 3 other companies that want this particular job that didn't get it. Maybe there's sour grapes going on here. Or why would they be interfering in what is the borough of Carteret's business in cleaning up our own town? Why don't they go back to their own cities and towns and clean up their messes? Let us take care of our own in Carteret. That's one thing about Carteret that I think everybody's always understood. We take care of our own, we clean up our own messes, and we don't appreciate when someone comes in from out of our town to tell us how we should live and what we should do. This is an excellent plan. It's going to clean up a huge mess and bring the town back some ratables. Part of it, no. It's dead forever. But let's not let the wind carry it places it doesn't need to go. And how do we all know here, especially these people that want to leave it just lay there for another 20 years and let more stuff go into the Rawway River, which you probably couldn't find a fish in there now from all the stuff in there. Why don't they think about what they're doing? It's our town. We want to keep it our town. We want to clean up our town. And I say, you know, personally, shame on them for coming into Carteret and telling us how we should handle our own business. We're proud of Carteret. It's a town that's come a long way in the last 10 years under this mayor and his administration. And I think that personally, they should butt out and leave us alone.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Lamont Repollet. I'm the principal of Carteret High School. Based on the nature of my profession, I have a vested interest in the health and future of our town's youth. The area in question, we all see the pictures, in its present state pose an untold safety risk to my students. My students, raise your hand, please. And to every resident of the borough of Carteret. Additionally, one need only to look at the images presented here tonight and see and understand the damages that has been done and still threatens to do to our community and our environment. This remediation project is vital to our health as a community and is important to be decided, and is too important to be decided by special interest groups. For our town and for our future, please approve this application, and thank you for the time. Freeholder Director, members of the Freeholder Board. My name is Tim Dillingham. I'm the Executive Director of the American Littoral Society. And that's a environmental organization that is interested in fisheries, clean water, and a clean environment. To go to the lady's comments just a little bit earlier, the members that I have in my organization, which are nearly 5,000 people who fish the state of New Jersey, who eat that fish, who use the waters, we all live downstream. So what happens in Carteret is of concern to more than the folks that live in Carteret. But I will say that we share the goals and the aspirations that I've heard folks speak to tonight. Everybody wants this site, as Mr. Smith even said, which is clearly in need of being addressed, to be safe for the environment, to be a productive part of the community, to have that opportunity. But I'll tell you, after 25 years of being in the world of environmental issues, that those goals are often not sufficient to ensure that the outcomes are the ones that you want them to be. The concerns that the environmental groups have raised, that have addressed the issues, been supplied to the freeholders, speak to the issues about what's going to be done here, how it's going to be done, not the end point of should the site be clean and safe and productive. There's no disagreement there. It's a question of, is the proposal that's on the table now going to get you there in a way that meets all those goals which everyone shares? So, our ask to you tonight is to not to move forward in this, but to look closely at the questions that have been raised, to look hard at the record, and to do that publicly so that it can be fully vetted, so that those goals that everyone shares are ones that are going to be assured. Because there are as many stories in New Jersey about where we failed because we didn't take our time to do this right, do things right, as have succeeded. Thank you.
Anybody else in the public?
Yes.
Councilman.
Thank you, Director. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jorge Diaz. I serve as the Council President for the Borough of Carteret. I have served the community for 7 years, and I've also served on the Planning Board for the last 9. I'd like to reiterate a few things that many of our residents have already said. This is our town. Carteret is our town. I'm here with about 40 residents from Carteret, and I'd like everyone who's here from Carteret to please stand for a moment. And I ask you to remain standing because you have heard testimony or comments and recommendations from many people here, but you haven't heard from all these people that are standing. But they're standing here because they support an application that came before the Planning Board and before the Mayor and Council. A meeting that was publicly held and not attended by either one of the 4 people that are here to oppose this resolution. They had an opportunity to come, to ask questions, to listen to the application, an application that we found unanimously favorable for our community, that we found as a viable option to remediate the site. And I simply ask you, as the gentleman who said that he was from Rahway, although not Carteret, it is a neighboring town, notice that no one else mentioned where they're from, because they're not from Carteret. But I'm going to use his own words. He said, use common sense, and I'm asking you to use common sense. And I'm going to ask you what all residents ask of our elected officials, of you as elected officials, to listen to the people of the community and make decisions for the people of the community and listen to their wishes. They don't have to say anything. They're standing here, showing their support. And I want you to take that into consideration. That's a strong showing from our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, freeholders. I'm Michael Sika. You know, I always find it interesting when an individual has to ask people to raise their hand if they're from Carteret. That just means that they've never been there. They haven't been there for 4 decades, while this site has stood polluted and contaminated, and unchecked, unremediated sludge and alum has flowed into the Rahway River. They talk about goals. We all share the same goals. I don't know these people. I'm a lifelong Carteret resident. I've never seen one of them. I've never seen a single idea to deal with the remediation of this site. They don't share our goals. They don't know this site because they've never been to Carteret with an idea that will promote the capping and the remediation of this site. A heavy industrial site. This will never be residential. It is never planned to be residential. Down the line, if this is successful, a very small portion of this property will be used potentially for a light industrial use. I'm a member of the SWAC committee for Carteret. I was at the hearing. I was shocked by the fact that the people who got up and talked traded on falsehoods to instill fear in the SWAC members. They have worked to trade on falsehoods to instill fear in the people of Carteret. But we're not afraid of their falsehoods. We know what we have at that site. Not a single one of them is from Carteret. Not a single one of them cared enough about this property over the last 40 years to propose a single idea to remediate it. Carteret has worked for decades trying to find a solution to this toxic wasteland. We found one. The SWAC committee voted unanimously. Now they come out of the woodworks. I would not be shocked to find that some of them were funded by competitors of this company. They are obstructionists by opportunity. Because it is that they have an opportunity to benefit, it is that they've now decided they're going to show their faces in Carteret and tell us what's best for cleaning up a contaminated site. Not a single idea. There's a different way of doing it. Did you hear it? Did you hear a single idea about the better way to clean this up? No, because they haven't thought it out. They are opposers. They are not solvers. The people of Carteret are solvers. This administration are solvers. This company is full of solvers. And I'm going to ask you tonight to respect the wish of the people of Carteret, to take the responsible action. Do not be environmentally irresponsible like the people who got up here tonight in opposition of a project which will stop the flow of 25 million gallons of groundwater runoff, contaminated, that flows every year into the Rahway River. Do the responsible thing. Support the people of Carteret. Give us an opportunity to preserve the 45 acres of wetlands, to preserve 55 acres of uplands. Give us the opportunity to return a small portion of this property, which is not adjacent to the river, by the way, the portion that they want to use, to economic viability. That is what the people of Carteret deserve. That is what the people of Middlesex County deserve. The people of Carteret and the people of Middlesex County do not deserve to be held hostage by this group of environmental radicalists. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Al Free. I'm the president of E-Star Environmental. I'm a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, and I'm the licensed site remediation professional who's been hired by the property owners to ensure that this property gets cleaned up. The property owners do not have a choice. They have a contaminated site. Under the regulations, it needs to be remediated. Now, how do you remediate it? Well, there's a lot of options, but certainly the most viable option we're seeing right now is to cap the facility. You need to cap it, and you need to cap it with a structural material that will support weight. That sludge has no strength. It cannot support anything. But as the LSRP, it's going to be my responsibility to make sure that that material that gets put down on this property meets the guidelines that will be established in the remedial action work plan. Some people here complain that the soil safe process was not recycling. I completely disagree with that. I would not allow material to be put down on the property if we're not recycling. They say it's just being dumped. It's not. The material is going to be screened, it's going to be processed, additives will be put into the material to improve its structural integrity, as well as encapsulate any incidental contaminants that may be in there. All of the material, before it even comes onto the site, is going to be fully characterized. And I will not let any material be put on top of those contaminated lagoons until I have approved it. So, I'm thinking that the site is going to need this. I know it needs this remediation, and the soil safe process in order to do it using the Class B is the appropriate way. Thank you.
Mr. Director and members, my name is Bob Smith. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of New Jersey, and I am the attorney for Soil Safe and Rahway Arch, and I'm proud of it. I do not represent applications generally for environmental issues, but in this case, I felt a personal compulsion to do so. When I looked at the history of this site, the years of neglect, the fact that you have one of the most contaminated sites in the state of New Jersey that was improperly issued a no further action letter by the DEP. This is as bad as the Ford contamination in Ringwood, New Jersey that also received an NFA. This is a dirty, filthy site that needs to be cleaned up. In terms of process, I represented Soil Safe in its site plan application in Carteret. Carteret was very, very careful in what they approved. This is Soil Safe is coming in for somewhere between 3 and 5 years to remediate the site, and then they're leaving. The property owners are not the owners who contaminated the site. They're not SciTech, they're not American Cyanamid. They're trying to be responsible with their property and get it cleaned up. In terms of the process, after site plan approval, we then went to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee of Middlesex County, where we received an enthusiastic endorsement, 18-0 vote. The representatives from all over Middlesex County felt that this Class B facility was most appropriate and a plus for Carteret and for Middlesex County. Now, lest you have any concerns about the environmental issues, it's really not a freeholder decision. It's a DEP decision. All your action tonight would do is permit this application to go to the DEP for review. And they're going to decide whether this is appropriate for the environment or not. That's how the process works. You heard Mr. Free, what he forgot to mention are the hundreds of sites that he's worked to remediate and the thousands of hours he's had as an LSRP. And in this state, if you don't do the right thing as a licensed site remediation professional, you lose your license. And I have no fear after seeing him testify and seeing his credentials that he's not going to supervise this in a magnificent way. You heard some comments about Soil Safe having some, quote, administrative violations. In New Jersey, that happens. They have not had violations in the last 4.5 years, and the violations before were paperwork. They are now doing Logan Township under the jurisdiction of the DEP and other sites around the country. This is a good, solid company. You've heard from the environmentalists that ID-27, that's the name of the soil, it has PAHs, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, is somehow an unusual capping medium. That is not true. It is a recognized capping medium. It is routinely used as a cap, and at the end of the process, the cap has to meet the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection industrial standards, so the site can be used for warehousing or whatever. So there, you have an actual guarantee and a watchdog to make sure that this is going to result in a much better condition of the property. Mayor's not wrong. You know, having a few ratables is not a bad thing for the borough of Carteret. Cleaning up this site and now not allowing these bathtubs filled with cyanide waste to continue is not a bad thing. Preventing 25 million gallons of cyanide contaminated waste leaking into the groundwater of Middlesex County is not a bad thing. This is a damn good application. Not a good application, it's a damn good application. Now, what is it that, at the end of the day, what is really the environmental concern? If the environmentalists, and I love them dearly, I meet with these people almost every week in another venue. If they had their druthers, they would like to see perfectly clean soil going into this site to be incorporated in this cement cap. The problem with that is there is no way economically that that can ever happen. All right, you are taking ID 27, and there is value to having a proper disposal of it, and you're incorporating it in a soil cement, and that makes the project economically viable, and it caps the site, prevents the 25 million gallons from going through the site, and really does a great job. So I don't want to say that my environmental friends have any other agenda other than they're a little misguided on this one. The perfect should not be the enemy of the good. The Borough of Carteret believes this is in its best interest. You've heard testimony from the company that's going to clean up the site that they do this right. This is a good project for Middlesex County, and I hope you will endorse it tonight.
Anybody else from the public?
Motion to close.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Director Rios, seconded by Freeholder Valente. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next on the agenda, items to be removed from consent agenda and voted on separately. I know, Mr. Kelso, I have two. 12-0476 and 12-0477, and they're located on page 7 and 8.
Mr. Kelso, I have one, 12-0461.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I believe that we need a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Yes, Freeholder Director, a motion would then be in order to adopt the consent agenda consisting of resolution numbers 12-0449 through 12-0553, excluding resolutions 12-0455, 0456, 0457, and 0458 to be held, Resolution 12-0537 to be voided, and Resolutions 12-0476 and 0477, and finally 0461 to be voted upon separately.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Director Rios, seconded by Freeholder Valente. At this time, I would give my freeholder colleagues opportunity to comment, but before that, though, I want to hear from County Council, Mr. Kelso.
Yes, just briefly, freeholders, with regard to the soil safe application, you do have before you, and I know it was provided to you previously, the record of the complete application process that was provided initially through the SWAC application process, which culminated in the public hearing, which was held March the 7th, 2012. We provided that to you along with, as you know, the transcript of the proceedings, along with the proposed plan amendment itself. We have provided to you as well a memorandum from my office just briefly outlining to you the process that's involved in approving a plan amendment together with the substance of the facts associated with this particular application, which involves the letters of support not only from Mayor Ryman of Carteret, but also the Mayor of Logan Township with regard to his experience with regard to this application. I would point out to you, I think, of particular note is the memorandum that's provided to you from the Office of Solid Waste Management, which is dated March 13th, 2012. If you'll note on page 2 of that memorandum, and this is typical with regard to applications for plan amendment where public hearings are involved, the Division of Solid Waste Management has a responsibility to review not only the application in chief, but also the public comments that are provided either in support or in opposition to an application, as well as submissions that may be received post-public hearing, because there is a period of time in which it is permitted to have additional submissions in writing, either in support or against an application. And I want to point out to you with regard to this particular application, the Division of Solid Waste Management has provided to you this memorandum, which identified essentially 16 areas where there were objections that were raised, some of which were reiterated this evening, some having to do with what were referred to as procedural defects, others with regard to what we refer to as fatal flaws. There were some characterizations with regard to how the application was processed, what the application actually involved, whether there was a source identified as to the ultimate destination, things of that nature, All of that was vetted by the Division of Solid Waste Management and incorporated into this memorandum to you. Of significance, and the reason I point that out to you is you'll also note that the Division of Solid Waste Management has responded and addressed each one of those objections, which again, you've heard some again this evening, to their satisfaction. There was an answer to all of those issues, and you'll see them in this memorandum, particularly, for example, what we refer to as procedural defects. That is not the case. All the public hearing notices that were required, both of the applicant as well as Solid Waste Management, were complied with, and I think it's of consequence for the freeholders to realize that, in fact, those responses were, in each case, appropriately addressed. I would finally point out to you that one of the items that the Division of Solid Waste Management recommended was a condition associated with the plan amendment, which we have incorporated in my office to the plan amendment itself, and it simply is language which recognizes, and I'll read it to you, recognizing what this application actually involves as a Class B recycling facility. And that language is that as follows: the applicant proposes to accept petroleum-contaminated soil, concrete, asphalt, brick, and block, and will recycle these materials on-site into engineered fill to cap and reclaim 85 acres of the 124.6 acre site in Carteret. The sole end market for the recycled products will be for in-house, on-site remediation and capping. None of the recycled products will be exported off-site. It was recommended that language specifically be included in the plan amendment, and we have done so based upon that recommendation. So again, pointing out to you the complete record that you've had, that's before you, that was provided to you previously, as well as specific responses and areas that were addressed by Solid Waste Management to their satisfaction, which gives rise to their recommendation of approval.
Any freeholder have any comment to make on that resolution prior to me calling roll call?
I would just like to comment, Director, as liaison to SWAC. Let me just start off by making one comment. We've had a lot of input from some of the environmental groups, some of whom are in Middlesex County, some who may not live in Middlesex County, but certainly they've put a lot of time and effort in to review the application. And I can understand from those of you who are here tonight in support of the application, your concern about those comments and perhaps even your objection to some of those comments. Let me just say this, though, to put things in context. I think as a county board, over the years, we've gotten very valuable input from environmental groups who have reviewed applications. I think that in a process of regulatory enforcement and in applications, it's actually very valuable when you have groups such as some of those who are represented here tonight who do review applications, who do provide input. We don't necessarily always have to agree with that input, but it's always nice to have additional eyes looking at these applications. And in many occasions, there have been points that have been raised by environmental groups on other applications that have been very valuable and have been taken into consideration by this board. There have been changes and amendments as a result of that input. So I want to thank them for taking the time and effort to go through this with a fine-tooth comb and make their representations. Having said that, and having read the comments, and to the comment that was made by one of the groups where we didn't attend the meeting, that may be true, but members of the board were provided a complete transcript of all the comments that were made at the public hearing. We had opportunity to read that, as well as accompanying documents that were provided to us by not only the environmental groups, but by the applicant, by supporters of the application. So suffice to say that we've had a lot of information to take into consideration as a board. We've had an opportunity to discuss that amongst ourselves at various times, consult with our professionals, and certainly with our SWAC, who again, as it was mentioned, was in unanimous support of this application. There has been a lot that's been talked about tonight on everything from what will be built there to stream encroachment issues, DEP regulations, Army Corps of Engineers has almost been brought up. What I'd like to say is that as a freeholder board, we have a very finite area of responsibility when it comes to this application. And that finite area of responsibility has to do with the application that's before us for the approval of this facility. Many of those other issues, although important to the future use of this property and to those of you who are here in support of it, are really not within our purview. When it comes to the specific area that we're responsible for, I believe, and I can't speak for the other members of the board, they will certainly comment or vote on their own, but as a member representing SWAC, that this has had a thorough evaluation, that it seems as though it has met the criteria that we need
in order to vote and approve it for inclusion in our plan as an amendment to our plan. We have a history of supporting these types of facilities within Middlesex County and recycling facilities of various natures throughout Middlesex County, recently approving one just last month for a different type of recycled material. So it falls within the philosophy and our plan within Middlesex County to create these opportunities. The other value to Carteret has certainly been made clear, and that will certainly be, I think, a collateral benefit as a result of this facility being created. But again, our focus as a board is focused on the merits of the application as a Class B facility, whether it meets our site plan, I should say our plan criteria, and it certainly has done that. And for that, I plan to give it support tonight. The benefits that come as a result of that for the facility and for the site and all the things that have been mentioned from the mayor and all of you who are here tonight, I can say that we wish you the best because we would love to see this site improved. We would love to see this site be able to become something that could be a benefit to Carteret and therefore to the entire county of Middlesex. But again, that's an after-the-fact issue, and our focus tonight clearly is on this application and the merits of that, and for that I give it support.
Thank you, Freehold. Anybody else? I'd like to make just a few comments before I call the vote. First of all, what is extremely compelling to me is the support that is from the borough of Carteret, from the mayor, from the elected council people, and certainly by all the people that are here today supporting Soil Safe and their request to be added to our solid waste management plan. Clearly that is compelling for me, and I'm sure for the members of this board of chosen freeholders. The application has received site plan approval by the Carteret Planning Board. The applicant submitted their application with the Solid Waste Advisory Council. That council has deemed that application complete. They actually had the applicant in, asked questions, concerns they had. They were satisfied, and unanimous recommendation was, a vote was taken to recommend that they be included in our plan. We set a public hearing down for input from the public. Questions were raised at that time, and answers were given. So what we have to decide today is whether to vote to amend our plan. We have an inclusion criteria that we follow. They have met that inclusion criteria. And let us not forget that there are many steps ahead. The next step would be with the NJDEP, who will have a substantial environmental review and oversight. Based upon everything I've read, I've heard, I'm going to vote for it, and I encourage my Freehold colleagues to vote for it. Okay, roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Belante.
Yes.
Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Rios.
If I may just add some comments, sure. Director, I'm sorry. I feel compelled to let everyone know. I live in Carteret, and I certainly would like to see this property remediated. I've been on the Borough Council back in the early 80s, and then again in 2001 I started my term in the Borough of Carteret as Council President. And I just feel that it's important to finally clean this up. It's been a project that's been sought by many administrations, and I just think it's important that we finally put this to rest and move on in a positive direction. And I vote yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Valenti.
Without a doubt, yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes.
At this time, Freeholder Director, it would be appropriate to consider the resolution that was excluded by Freeholder Tamaro, and that's Resolution 12-0461.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Director Rios, seconded by Freeholder Valente. Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Belante.
Yes.
Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Rios.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Present not voting?
Freeholder Valenti. Yes. Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes.
And finally, Freeholder Director, it would be appropriate to consider the two resolutions excluded by you as Director, and that's Resolutions 12-0476 and 0477.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Director Rios, seconded by Freeholder Polos. Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Belante.
Yes.
Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Rios.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Valenti.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Present, not voting. Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to open to the public, public discussion on any item. Anyone from the public who would have any discussion on any item?
Motion to close the public portion?
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Deputy Director Rios. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Director Rios, seconded by Freeholder Tamara. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.
Non-debatable. Non-debatable.